Witch Hat Atelier does a good job of establishing the connotatively villain faction. The Brimcaps are devious, sly, and skilled, while being elusive enough to avoid any direct contact. However, the story in the most recent episode blurs the lines between hero and villain, with the Knights Morales stubbornly upholding the pact and Kifri acting on his own selfish goals. All the while, Coco is victim to the surrounding events and forced to remain passive when she's what I would call a very active protagonist. We'll discuss all of it, first off with how the Knights Morales function as a faction in a narrative. So, we've been teased about who they are. In theory, they function as a policing force for the witches. This is for assurance that no magic being used anywhere goes against the pact. An example of this magic being used that we've seen is the Dada range. To destroy what seemed like a swamp into a floating array of debris is a mistake that these knights don't want to see happen again. Another occurrence is what happened with the riverbank while helping the civilians. It pulverized the sediment bed and temporarily evaporated the water. Just as nature assists the practicality of magic, I believe the witches who confide in the pact decided that magic should make peace with the natural world as well. That's only how I interpret it though. It would make sense why they don't necessarily agree with drawing spells on your flesh either, no matter the circumstances. So, I want to visualize the spectrum of pact believers with a simple graph. From a scale of 1 to 10, with 1 being non-believer to 10 being the most faithful believer. In the blue box, we have regular witches. From my understanding, they are harmless if we're talking about deviation from the norm. They live their normal lives, attend to duties with their magic, but like I mentioned in the previous video, there's not much desire to be that hero in shining robes. To the right are the Knights Morales. There's still a range on these people, where I believe the very end of the graph has our new addition to the cast of characters, Istis. He is someone who, as said by himself, won't show mercy to even children when it comes to upholding the rules that have kept everyone safe all this time. Towards the opposite end of the spectrum, we, of course, have the Brimcaps. As a faction in the story thus far, they have functioned as a villainous group. As we learned in this episode, the way that they alter the ink or spell casting by tattooing themselves is violating everything we know about the magic system so far. However, we have only seen one out of who knows how many, and the way they watch from the sidelines and are willing to put Coco in extreme danger to achieve their objective is cruel in many ways. From what we have in the graph so far, you'll notice that there's a gap towards the first half of the figure. This is where I would put the non-magic users or citizens, as easier said. For starters, I believe most people are from the far right quadrant of the section. I would say that this is where Coco was. She always believed magic was for helping others, creating wonders, and bringing joy to people's lives. She is a textbook version of a very faithful witch. Still, there was a majority of her life where she wasn't a witch. She could only dream without the proper components and knowledge. Now that she has the same resources as the others, she can bridge the gap between citizens and witch. But the years of schooling that she never received of moral and ethical responsibility, it's all new to Coco, and we've seen in the earlier episodes how the temptations of forbidden magic have clouded her mind. Who knows if she can remain headstrong forever? Well, now that I've bored you with my diagram, let's get into this week's episode. Istis has an inkling that Coco is a point of interest for the Brimcaps. However, without any hard evidence, there's no justifiable way for him to do anything to Coco. As we get the hard cut into the Brimcap at the beach, we remember that they are wanting to bring Coco under their wing themselves. They believe that Coco has the power to bring some change to the way things are. They did call Coco their hope. There's also a lot of screen time with Kifri this week. He helps Coco browse some more of the stationery shop and gets up to some strange things, which I will get into in one moment. In a very admirable way though, he coddles Coco as if she was his own daughter. I believe it is genuine, but we know some of his other motivations regarding Coco and her allowed existence in the scenery of witches. These people are only 3 of the forces that are pushing and pulling Coco along this graph that I've provided. There's been moments when Coco is leaning towards the left side, and other moments where genuine hopes and dreams allow Coco to push forward forward towards the right. Her background will still never allow her to hop ship into either section though. Going further into the series, the influence of these forces will only grow stronger. Look at what Kifri does to Nonoa. Upon learning about the trick behind the ink pot, Kifri says that he must have it, and none of what happened can get out of the shop. Nonoa, rightfully so, responds by saying that he absolutely has to report this incident to the Great Hall. Then, with no hesitation, Kifri wipes the memory of the ink pot from Nonoa's mind. It's obvious enough, given what we know. Kifri has been known to be selfish, as described by his past days and Olrugio in his discussion in front of the fireplace. He is still chasing after the Brimcaps, who he has some sort of history with. In order to do that, he turned his magic against those who he considers friends, and quite close ones at that. Considering what Kifri has just described about memories and what they mean to someone, he was still willing to cast it upon another he knew. This is a moment, or a revelation I should say, where people can start to come to the conclusion that good and bad are not so clear-cut in this world. Kifri in that moment acted much like a malice-filled individual. At least, he was selfish for his own desires. Heroes don't usually act out of their own consideration. Still, we know Kifri as someone who acts for others as well. This is a very complicated position that the audience has been put in. The Knights Morales, who should be good according to the pact and its history, seem very strict with their questioning and judgments. We still can't fully make out if it's for better or for worse. As for the Brimcaps, I mentioned it in a past video, but the one we've seen so far has an air of mystery about them. Obviously, they violate the pact, but if the Knights Morales were going to erase the memories of a child over it, how absolutist should a good person even be? So, in this episode, we get a taste of the bigger picture, where supposed heroes can lean more towards villainy. As discussed, each of these actions, if they come to light or not, can influence Coco and her tendency to deviate towards either side. Naturally, if Coco could have her way with every interaction, as the active protagonist that she is, she would always strive towards the heroic side of upholding the pact and protecting everyone. That is not how the series always tends to go, however. All the difficulties that she faced at the beginning with her mother and the isolation from the rest of the atelier at first, it was the non-stop difficulties that got Coco into a dark headspace. There was enough turmoil to cause her to think about forbidden magic. When she is not able to be active, Coco takes on a reactionary and sometimes even passive role. In saying this, I mean that rather than taking the initiative, sometimes Coco has to play off of her surroundings and maybe even accept a harsh truth. In the recent episode with the bridge accident, Coco tried her best to maneuver things on her own, but she needed to wait for a god's distraction to go ahead and get rid of the boulder. Even in this moment, she needed the reminder from the Bird of Light to gain inspiration from the past. Then we have the passivity moments. Coco is always ostracized at first for being an outsider. There isn't much she can do about this. When Agat is lambasting her and Olrugio is dragging her away, there's a dread that builds up in Coco that adds to the pull on the spectrum. In the scene where Tarta reveals he has silverwash eyes, Coco doesn't know what to think. She ends up asking Kifri about it, but it only serves to dampen her mood. Considering her background of being an outsider, she still needs to learn a lot about the world of witches. Knowing that she is still a child, there's so much more about life in general that she needs to accept. Even if she thought magic is wonderful and could fix so many things, there's an acceptance that comes with knowing the ins and outs about the craft that you once idolized. There needs to be this shift in perspective. For Coco, a heroine who's passionate about helping others and even fired up more about magic being the instrument to help, setbacks like this can lead to negative results. She'll suffer from worry and tragedy while holding on to her hope and fantasy. This conflict may seem simple, but it's multifaceted with its complex characters, intricate magic system, and rich, lustrous world. Each episode gets deeper into the iceberg. Well, that's all I have for today. Thank you all again for your continued support. Coming up this Sunday, I'll be releasing a different video that's about a different anime. In case you want to check it out, make sure to subscribe. Other than that, thank you all again very much. See you all later, you cool people.